Immigration detention centers, what are they like, and how can I go and visit a loved one, and what are the logistics of that? I'm Attorney Pandeli, and we're here at the law offices of Alien Attorney. And let me first start by giving you why detention centers exist, and then how they're sort of constructed. Really, they're called detention centers, so, and detention is supposed to mean it's a temporary confinement, as opposed to incarceration, which is a longer term confinement. But when you look at a detention center, especially places like Foxton, Georgia, Stewart, Georgia, there's barbed wire all around the center, and a lot of times, for example, in Foxton, they're next to another regular prison. And they're run by the same people that run the prisons, which is typically Geo Group and Core Civic. Geo Group for, let's say, Foxton, and then Core Civic for, or CCA rebranded as well, Core Civic, CCA in Stewart, Georgia. And so they're held in most detention centers. They will be somewhere remotely, because first they want them to be outside of, or far from densely populated areas, and they require a lot of land. But also, I think part of it is also so access. There's not so much access to the outside world, both from the outside world coming in to visit people, and from the inmates or detainees trying to venture out. And in terms of visitation, the typical hours are between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. For attorneys, they might make, they might make some exceptions up until 5 p.m. I've gotten it 4:55 at Stewart, for example. I've gotten in. Again, they're not super happy about it, but they let me in. But it's different for attorneys than it is for regular visitors. For regular visitors, it's a maximum typically of 2 adults and 2 children, and no more than that. Please be aware that when you go in, leave your cell phone and things like that in the car, because you will not be allowed to take any of that with you. Needless to say, any knives, things like that are absolutely not allowed. You will go through metal detectors, taking your shoes off and everything. In some facilities, well, for the attorneys are able to see the detainees face to face and not through a bulletproof glass. But for example, for most detention centers, for loved ones, visitations are typically through bulletproof glass, and oftentimes, like for example in Stewart, you have to pick up the phone to call, and there was a period of time where phones weren't even working, so it was a little difficult. But that's kind of in terms of visitation. And so be prepared to drive a lot of times. A lot of times the centers are in the middle of nowhere, and when you look at places like Foxton or Stewart, it feels like the towns are ghost towns. There's nothing there apart from the center, and that's the major business that the adjacent town will get. Procedures for how to send mail. You can send mail to the detainees. Make sure you have their first and last name and alien number or A number, as well as then the center address. You can call them, although you cannot call them directly. Maybe a message can be left oftentimes, and then they can call you back. Or it's better that you put money in their trust account, or they have a card that they can use to call the outside world. At the very least, they can use collect call to call you back. So those are some of the things around detention center. I know some people, they're probably, they're anxious, and rightfully so, and so some of their questions might be, well, what are the conditions inside the detention centers? They're run by the same people that run jails, and they're made by the same people that make jails and prisons. And so one way to think about it, that they're constructed quite similarly. However, the level of freedom is a little better than it would be at a prison. Be aware when you visit, so this comes up a lot, be aware when you visit that after 2 p.m. it's really difficult, because it might take them a while, and it typically takes a long time for them to process people through, to go through visitations for the visitors. And be prepared to wait a lot. And the reason is because a lot of times they'll have, well, so there's the internal bureaucracy, with that's number one, and that's there with any kind of body that is related to a government entity. But second, prisons, jails, detention centers have automatic counting, and so they count the inmates, and typically that's done twice a day. And so you have one in the morning, and then you have one in the evening. The hours vary, but sometimes you might have to wait. If you go to, like, let's say 9 a.m., you might have to wait an hour for them to stop counting, and sometimes it could take longer. So be prepared to wait. And that's just some general information around detention centers. Thank you for watching, and if you like the video, give us a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments about it, we appreciate them. Put them below in the comments. If you need further help, call us, reach us through our website, and we'll see what we can do to help. Have a great day.